Hello, I'm here at the Berlin office playing a bit of 2XKO, and I had the chance to also interview some of the people who work in this game. So the first interview is going to be against with Yohosie and Apologyman playing this game too much.
Sorry, I get it. Yeah.
So first off, for people who don't know you, what do you do for the game? What's your job, and what's your day-to-day in the working on 2XKO?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Don Hilsey, aka Yohosie. I'm part of the gameplay analysis team. Basically, my job is to make sure that the game is really balanced at a high level, but also fun and balanced for low-level players. And then here is...
My name is Vineet Meka, aka Apologyman, and I am a part of the gameplay analysis team with Don as well. And yeah, just like she said, we focus on finding just fun gameplay patterns that we like and what low-level players like, high-level players like. Both long-time fighting game players, and our job is basically just to play the game a lot, honestly.
It's an amazing job.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
It's quite a good job.
Lucky.
It's a fun job. So about that, a lot of people, you play the game and you try to find this fun stuff or whatever, but how is your day? Like what do you do in a regular day of job? How do you plan, or how do you play the game, or what do you look for? What's the process on a day of someone who is like testing 2XKO or finding this gameplay?
Sure, yeah, so I can walk through my day-to-day. Basically, in the morning, we file any bugs that we happen to find. As former pro players and still pro players for Vineet here, a lot of the day-to-day is like we find bugs that other players just can't find because we're playing at such a high level that we notice things that other players wouldn't. So usually it's finding bugs. We then determine, okay, what are we actually going to focus on today? Are we going to focus on whiff punishing to see which character has the best whiff punish, see if we can like adjust around that. We do a daily play test where we make changes to champions, and then we test them on basically the whole team gets together and plays it. So we get perspectives from developers who maybe don't play the game every day, and then from us who sweat on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and also on top of that, like we all play against each other. And on the team, we basically have like the most amount of hours on the game. So we are constantly testing just the most up-to-date versions of each of the game, because the game changes a lot and it's still pretty far into development. So we're like just seeing whatever like the designers like ideas are. Sometimes they'll just add some new move and be like, all right, what do you guys think? And we'll be like, oh, it's fun, or like, oh, it's kind of broken. Like it's just a lot of play testing, a lot of different iterations that we just kind of like run through.
Yeah.
And and a lot of bugs.
A lot of bugs.
Okay. So once your team joined Riot, I think a lot of people were like, okay, these are the right people, because you guys are like experts on finding broken stuff, let's say, or unfair stuff, or whatever what you want to call. So what's the process that you follow when you are playing these games, new games, or 2XKO, to try to find new stuff, or how do you approach the game to try to squeeze like how the game is going to be played at a high level, or what's your approach on that? Because a lot of people are like, they need to copy, or they are not able to find the stuff, and there are people like you who are like, those guys can break the game super easily. So how does that apply to your job?
Yeah, well, Riot's lucky that they hired Ghost Oki and Hellzone Grenade Oki from Dragon Ball. So a lot of it really is, I think when players choose teams, they really want to optimize that team and find new things for that team. But because we're working on this game and we have to play every character, a lot of it is every day we pick a team and a fuse, and we run through that team and that fuse and see how we can break it. A lot of times it falls flat. Like, okay, this team doesn't work at a level that, is hyper optimal, or this team works, but it works kind of like other teams that happen to do the exact same thing, right? Like there's nothing super special about this team. And then sometimes we stumble upon, okay, wait, this might be a meta breaker. Like this is a team that actually is either toxic or so meta breaking, but it's in a good way, right? Because the meta is stale internally. So we go through this process every day of just picking a new team, labbing that team, testing that team against each other, and giving it some soak time to see like, okay, like after a week, yeah, all right, it's time to like switch it up. We decide this team is good, we decide this team is bad, and we just go through that process pretty much on a weekly basis.
Yeah, for sure. And we all have to like basically play every character that's in the game. And so, there's so many possible like combinations and permutations from just playing all these characters together as well as fuses. So there's basically like no end of possible like gameplay like combinations together. So because of that, we're just like in training mode, like labbing and just like finding. Anytime we get like some random new idea, I'll like run it by Don or someone else on our team and be like, oh, have you tried this? Or in a lot of ways, it's just living the game as I normally would any other fight game, right?
But
But
happen to pay you.
Exactly. But sometimes it'll be with the goal of like maybe even chasing like a bug or like, oh, this weird thing happened with these two characters together. What do you think? Oh, it might work with these other two characters together. It's a lot of that back and forth. And, obviously we give a lot of focus to whatever the designers are putting into the game. We're like, because, they're adding new content all the time. They're always like trying to, just give the characters like a lot of love and, push them to their furthest potential. So we have to be testing like the cutting edge of any new thing they put in. Yeah.
So about the balance philosophy or the design philosophy, what you want to call, it's like some games are like, we need the game to be super fun and we don't care. The game must be or can be crazy as long as it's fun. Some of the games are like more, okay, this needs to be fair so everyone can. So what's the approach of the team on that regard? It's like when is it too much or when is it, or just let it rock and everything? Because to be honest, I think this game it's quite crazy. It's right now. So what's the design philosophy you have, or what's the balance philosophy you have? When is it too much, or when is it too low? Like it's boring. So how do you find that?
Yeah, I think it all starts at champ design, right? When you design a champion, you want to make sure that they're unique and they do something special. And in our game, I feel like what we do that we take advantage of because we're a team game is the special things that our champions do are really, really, really special, right? Like Ari has 3 orbs. Darius is just Darius. Darius has got a big old axe, right? But Echo has the timeliner. He can clone. Yeah. Alawi can do the... Thank you. So Alawi has the tentacles that she can use, right? And when you have these big designs, big gameplay follows. And when you have a diverse cast like that, there's bound to be matchup disparities, right? And we on our side, like... Clock told me, hey, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is not very balanced, but it's one of the best fighting games ever made, if not the best, right? However, we want to make sure that every character is viable, at least, if not better than viable, if we do our jobs right, at low, mid, and high-level play. And that whole journey, sure, characters may change positions, but no one is exceptionally broken at any level. Because if we end up in a situation where all of a top 8 is the same character, that doesn't, that's not great. We want to make sure that there's diversity out there. And in terms of like, how do we decide when enough is too much? The first thing that Clock asks me every time that we find something that is really, really strong is, okay, are you having fun, right? Before you nerf it, are you having fun? Because all the best things in fighting games are broken. There's nothing like, oh yeah, I love doing like low, medium kick and a fireball and go like, yeah, that's really good at that. Like even if they're high tier, it's more fun to have something broken and fun, both to play as and play against.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like another really important thing is when it comes to fun, like that's obviously subjective, right? So we're constantly voicing just like our feelings of any gameplay is like, oh, does this feel fun? Why does this feel fun?
Yeah,
I don't trust you.
I like what I think is fun. It's probably not what a lot of other people.
An RPG.
Yeah, exactly. So, we have to constantly like take feedback from a ton of people on our team, honestly. Yeah. And I think that's like honestly a really fun part of the job is just hearing so many different perspectives on like whatever specific gameplay thing that is like being added, or because we have our daily play tests, right? And we have like feedback sessions at the end of it. We're just talking about like, I'll be like, wow, I found this, and this, and maybe like someone else in the play test will be like, this move just makes me like hate the game, and I'm just talking about, and it's just like, oh wow, interesting, and I'll just like have to like, and then they'll tell me their perspective, right? I'm like, oh, I can see why like this gameplay would make you feel that way, right? And I think that's like a big part of just like playtesting in general is just getting like the right amount of enjoyment for like any tool, because I like strong tools too, right? Like Don said, like strong tools are just fun in fighting games. So I think
strong, not oppressive.
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for, unless it's cool oppressive.
Okay,
unless it's cool.
So when do you reach that point where you say like, okay, this champion it's okay. Do you ever reach that point? It's like you keep playing all those champions all the time, or it's like, okay, now we find like Echo, it's perfectly like we've done with this one and let's keep going, or you still revisit those champions and keep iterating? Because you told me like, okay, this champion I'm playing in this build last month was so different. So is there any point where you say, okay, let's move on? Like,
Yeah, there is. So champ design is like a pyramid, right? You start at the bottom with your big ideas, which are like writing out actual concepts. So then let's start to put things together to, okay, this actually works. Like this kit is quote unquote locked. Great, let's move to the next step. Let's move to the next step. And so as it gets further and further, it gets more and more pointed. So early on, we might be discussing, should a character even have this tool? And at the end, we might be discussing like, hey, instead of this being +2, it should be like +1. Like it actually gets that pointed at the end, and it never really stops, and it's never going to stop, right? Because we're going to see how the meta develops when the game is live. We're going to see how players are going to react, and we're going to have to make adjustments based on that. So champions are never done. They're just kind of done.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And there's constantly shifting like priorities on whatever champion's being developed. And at the beginning, right, there's a lot of different tools like going in and out, right, before like their kit is like really like locked in and finalized. But then later on, it's just like, okay, this normal is a little slower or is a little faster. It's like small, minute damage numbers. It just really depends on like where in the lifespan of a champion is, what we focus on.
Okay, so we spoke also like you guys have been playing the game for a year or daily, and you still find new stuff, and you still... and I was amazed because you were eating or just chatting, and you were talking about the game. I was like, these people are sick. They play every game. I keep talking. So we live in an era of this information where games are like, I don't want to say figured out, but very quickly you do the best combo, and it can be a bit more linear. So in your opinion, do you think this game kind of has this middle ground where it can really have the depth of evolving through the years and being hard at least to discover or being hard to figure out, even if probably when the game releases, a lot of people will play and discover things in minutes. But do you think, or are you happy with the direction of the game in that regard? Like, okay, this is a game that I see myself playing for a long time and discovering things.
Yeah, I think it's a two-part question, right? In terms of the information discovery, like players share information way more than they ever used to, right? Like information is just out there. And to me, what's most interesting isn't necessarily information, but how it's used and what is actually practical in a real match, right? There's a lot of theory crafting that says that something is broken, but until you put it and actually implement it into the game, you don't know if it's actually broken, right? There might be counterplay that people haven't discovered. It's in fighting games, people figure out offense before defense, right? And I feel like we went through a period in our game where offense was extremely powerful, and now defense slowly over the past year has caught up and up and up and up because we did a lot of analysis on like, oh, push block or, oh, parry here. Yeah.
The last time you told me like, oh, I think parry it's under power, and now you told me, no, it's really strong.
Oh, yeah, parry is really good right now. So I think that, the lifespan of a game of like this, I would expect like 1 to 2 years for people to really figure out. But obviously there's going to be changes, new characters, blah, blah, blah. So the game will continually evolve along with the player base, and hopefully it's never fully figured out. Even Marvel vs. Capcom 2, they're still finding new infinites. So
yeah, I think with team games also just the nature of them, they're just kind of tough to figure out. There's just so many combinations, right? And at a high level, obviously people will focus on like the strategies that'll help them win the most. But I really do think like if the game is in like a good, like, healthy meta, like, there'll be a lot of variety. And the more variety there is, that means there's just more stuff to find out, right? And that's what we're kind of hoping.
Okay. So, duos. I think a lot of people will, when they play the game, they realize this is a really fun way to play the game with friends. And for you, you are really strong players in regular fighting games. So, how has been the experience on playing duo, and what are your expectations for when people play? It's like, do you expect people to really seriously give it a try and play duos? Do you think people will be more like, I play 1v1? And do you think you can experience this game to its full potential by playing solo, or do you need to really play duo to do that, or at least in your opinion?
Yeah, I think at the beginner level, right? Or rather the shallow level, it's so interesting to get someone who doesn't play fighting games to play duo. Because people that don't play video games, that aren't gamers, actually pick up on fighting games pretty quickly, right? A lot of games out there are really complicated, but in fighting games, you press the button's performed, right? So, like, I can't wait to, like, for me and my wife to play 2XKO and be like, all right, I'll teach you how to play fighting games through this. We've kind of done this in little bits and pieces here, being like, okay, let's teach this player how to play. And they have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of fun teaching them how to play, right? It's like mentorship. And at a high level, I do expect some players to do duos. The benefit of being able to take a break mentally mid-match. Like, the biggest enemy in tournament is anxiety. If you don't have anxiety and you're a really good player, chances are you're going to win that tournament. Nerves are everything. So the ability to sit out and think is really, really, really important in duos. And I know that sounds silly because, like, oh, at an optimal level, blah, blah, blah. It's extremely real, actually. It's super real.
No, yeah, for sure. And I feel like improving in fighting games can sometimes feel like a pretty lonely experience. Like, for me personally, like the most fun thing about fighting games has been like the community aspect of it and just like hanging out with friends, like playing games together, right? So I think duos like really emphasizes that in the sense of like you're playing together, but also like when you're competing and fighting against other players together, you also will want to practice together too. You know, it'll like kind of like if you have like a duo partner you're always playing with, you're going to want a training mode together, and I think that'll help just like bounce ideas one off another, and you're both like improve together. I think that's like a really nice thing about duos that I like.
Yeah.
So a couple more only.
Sure.
What's your experience about this dream job of playing fighting games, and now you are working for Riot, like doing what you like the most, which is being lab monsters and just discovering things, and a lot of people will look at you and say, okay, this is my dream to do what you do. So how has been that experience of being pro players or competing and now being part of this game and being part of seeing it like born and just released to the community and being the first ones to see the reaction of people? Like, how has been the experience to be part of this?
Yeah, it's a blessing, really. It really is. I used to work as a designer, like a graphic designer, and I always played fighting games on the side, and I never thought that fighting games were a career for me because it's not a career for many, right? It's very much the few. And while I was never a top tournament consistent winner, it's so strange that this path of being a lab monster and doing training mode over and over and also being like an upstanding person of the community, right? I think that's also important because this job is also, we talk to the community. I'm sure we're talking to you right now, right? So like these good vibes that I've expressed throughout a while, right? Like in this lack of toxicity and also us being training mode, it just coalesced into this job. And every day I wake up and I walk my dog and I make coffee and I sit down and I go, it's time to go to work. And then I just pull out my hitbox. Every time I grab that hitbox, I feel like I'm cheating. Like I feel like I'm like goofing off at the job, but it is my job. And there's a lot of real work behind it too. But in the end, it is a lot of playing games. And doing that for work is, it's magical. Can I say magical? It's magical. Yeah.
No, I honestly feel super lucky to be able to do it because I think as like a high level player, there's only in the past I only thought there was two ways to really use that skill, right? It's one is beating other players, and two is like teaching and like creating content, like and showing gameplay to other people. But there's this like third different skill thing you could do with this skill, and it's actually helping create something. And I feel super privileged in being able to do that.
Awesome. So last one, which is your favorite champion that you have in the game? If it's in this version, if it's not, you don't have to say. But and in this version, which one is your favorite, or which one is the one you enjoy the most?
Yeah. Echo by a lot. I love Echo. The character is mix-up city. They have really good neutral, and also they're very, very, very good. So I'm always happy to play Echo. I think that the rewind stuff, it gives you such creative freedom to do literally whatever you want. You can literally cancel any move at any point for any reason into multiple moves. That's insane. Like when I saw Echo when I joined the team, I was like, oh, like this is my type of video game. I'm down.
It's so hard. Oh man, it like changes like every month. It's like this is my favorite character now. For the longest time it was Ari, and now I feel like it's Yasuo. It's like between them two. Sometimes it's Echo. But I think right now it's Yasuo. I really like his like stance cancels and stuff. Okay. Like you can play him in like a really simple way. Like a really cool thing about him is like his floor is pretty low, but like his ceiling is really high, right? You just can jump in, hit big normals, and like make one wall and like stab it.
It's easy to feel like a god.
Yeah. And then at like a high level, there's like so many different like combo routes with them, and like you can do all this like stance cancel pressure. That I find that really fun. So yeah, it's probably also right now.
And one last thing only. Apologyman, can you please say sorry to everyone for I have to play against your Marvel team every week against Firebrand, and I demand an apology right now because that team is so broken. And why did you do that to all of us who play Marvel? ALEXDITO, look.
I'm not gonna apologize. All right, I'm gonna be real. I'm actually so happy people are even playing my team still. That team is super hard to play. You're doing your damnedest. It's really hard. It looks easy because you're unblockabling everybody and they don't get to play. No, it's not. It's not easy. It's hard. It's very technical. You're a hardworking player. But I am sorry if it's hurt you in any way. But keep.
Real apology.
Yeah, I'm sorry you feel that way. Yeah.
To the fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks a lot for your time and thanks for your answers and keep doing the good work on the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.